What is up? It's Hobbyist First. Let's take a look at a year's worth of painted miniatures from Gearguts Mech Shop. For those that are unaware, Gearguts Mech Shop is a company that produces 3D digital sculpts and also physical 3D prints for use in games like Warhammer 40K. These models can be used as alternatives to the Warhammer models and the Warhammer sculpts, but they're also usable for all kinds of other game systems. Predominantly, the Gearguts line focuses on orc alternative sculpts, but there are certainly models available for use in lots of the other factions in the game, or could be used in other game systems as well. I work as an affiliate and was promoted this year to partner creator, which basically means my job is to paint up the Gearguts products so that they can use those photographs in the web store. Let's take a look at some of these models that I worked on in the last year. I'm going to start out with the Bruiser Prime Sword Champion A. This particular model is from the Bruiser Prime line, which is like a orc version of Adeptus Custodes. So these are larger orcs that are heavily armored, and this guy would represent, I think, the Sword Champion from the Custodes line. And you'll see that this guy's painted in a heavily weathered, damaged white armor, and also shows off the great muscle sculpting that Gearguts has been developing. And my orc skin recipe uses a couple greens and some purple in the recesses of the muscles, because in my opinion, orcs are an alien species, so they should look a little bit alien-y in the skin. So that purple, I think, pushes them in that direction. Next model is going to be the Crusader Medic A, and this model's from the Crusader line, which is basically like Space Marine power armored orcs. And this model I'm going to use to represent a Big Mech in Mega Armor, because in 10th edition, Big Mech in Mega Armor can be a leader for Mega Knobs, and they have the rule where they can fix up a dead or killed guy. So I thought an orc apothecary in power armor would fit the job there pretty well. Only modification to this model, the gun barrel got damaged while I was cleaning it, so I ended up having to snip that off, and I replaced it with this Melta barrel, which actually lends itself well to this being a custom Mega Blasta that this guy could use in game. And you see I got my Blood Axe symbols on there, and that white armor is chipped up, weathered. Here we're going to look at the Primal Bruiser boss on Dogasaur A, and my squig models for my Blood Axe force are all purple, and you can see the really nice sculpt on the face of this thing, this awesome open mouth, roaring, and the teeth. And now I printed this thing out, and I was, just learning how to resin print, and I do have occasional resin leakage. You can see right there is a little, like it needs to be cured. But the rider here, you see his massive muscled arm is actually like bigger than a standard 40K orc. He's got this massive axe. You see I've taken advantage of that flat surface to put some Blood Axe camo. And I got my tiger stripe camo for his shirt, and that's the camo pattern that I use on all my orc boys and my boy mobs. This is I represent a beast boss on Squigosaur. Next I want to show you these infantry. These are the Pyro Bruisers D from Gearguts line of I guess counts as Burna Boys. I really like this guy because he's like advancing, and he's got the goggles on. I picked this particular set of them because there are several options for Burna Boys coming out of the Gearguts web store. But I like these because as a Blood Axe player, they look like they got night vision goggles. and they look a little bit more militaristic with their big like gas cans that are fueling their burners. Here's another one, and showing off that muscle with the purple. Here's the guy. He's got some Blood Axe camo shoulder pad there. Got his ammo can. This probably would represent a unit leader. This dude is smoking a cigar. And the last one is he's flipping the bird and has a sculpted checker pattern on his shoulder pad. These infantry squads generally come in groups of 5. Let's take a look at some def dreads. I really leaned heavy into def dreads at the end of 9th edition 40K when I was fielding multiple units of 3 def dreads, and Gearguts has so many different options. He calls them claw walkers. What we're looking at here is Claw Walker J, and I use this model to represent a def dread with 3 custom Mega Blasters, because he's got this three kind of barreled energy gun, and I say he has one power claw, which just represents like one of his hands grabbing you. I added only one armor piece from the GW kit. The rest of what you see here is stock kit. It's got this power pack on the back. I painted up to have these golden orbs for contrast. You'll see a couple different camo patterns on there, which is consistent with my Blood Axe collection. This is Claw Walker F, and I'm excited to show this because it shows off what you can do, not just using the Gearguts kits as stock, but it is possible to modify them. I know through the Discord that there are some hobbyists that are digitally modifying the designs, or they're taking them and basically converting or kit bashing using software. But I'm a traditional hobbyist. I'm using plastic card to do things like box in this whole shoulder, adding armor. I replaced one of the legs with a dreadnought weapon and a guard sentinel feet. I have a third-party crewman here who is like a tanker, and I added some detail to the inside of the hatch. And I think this is a GW jaw plate from the official Def Dread kit. So just to show off what can be done with the Gearguts kits if you do want to modify them. I mean, some people think you 3D print these things and you kind of you print it as is, but you can still kit bash and convert, even though we're using 3D printing as a tool. This is the Claw Walker O, and he would represent 4 claws, or in this case saws. And when I use this thing, I feel like he's in like a baby Bjorn, like a baby carrier, and his hands are up, kind of mimicking or he's driving. He's got these little like sensors on his hands. He's activating the saws. So I colored them red on here to match the red that's on there, and that red pops, especially Blood Axe. I try to put pops of red on some of the weapons of my troopers, especially the melee weapons. And you see some of that ambush camo on the armor here, and a drab green, like an army color for the rest of it. I haven't mentioned my bases, but you see throughout my army, all my orcs are on bases that have like rusted junk, some skulls, and some stones. So they're fighting over some ruined urbanscape. Excuse me. Let's take a look at the Claw Walker I. And Claw Walker I would be played as a Def Dread with 4 big shooters, which in meta right now isn't optimal, because the weapons are currently included in the cost, so you're not getting full value if you fielded it that way. But I really like the sculpt. He's got a couple Claw Walkers that are like 2 hands holding a weapon, And I think they're just a fun take on the idea of an orc mech. This is more of a winter camo. You see like an off-white with some gray patches here, and the emphasis through color is done through these lenses and lights and sensors. So part of my design style is to add a little bit of red for some of the equipment to call out certain parts of that against the drab and rusty metal, and also to have these bright lights and sensors on there. The last of the Claw Walkers, we're looking at Claw Walker K, and this is to represent a Death Dread with 4 rocket launchers, and pretty straight to the point. You're gonna be throwing out a lot of blast rocket shots with this. And it was a pretty simple paint. I painted them up in a tiger stripe camo, black over green. Again, a little bit of emphasis with the symbols, and the cables pop a little bit. Not a lot of lights and sensors on this one compared to some of the other sculpts. And our Blood Axe symbol is there, and like the other ones, he's standing on some rusted junk. I make use of a lot of 3D print raft garbage, so things that after I 3D print at work I would normally throw away, but a lot of those things have nice texture that take well to rusted junk and being dry brushed and covered in some of these special effects paints. I want to show you now some of the Gearguts models. When I say Gearguts models, the Gearguts has made every year a Mark 1, 2, 3, 4, and this year released Gearguts Mark 5. My goal this year was to complete the collection of the Gearguts sculpts. So Gearguts generously sent me Mark 1, 2, and 5 to get my collection up to date. This is Mark 1 and represents some of the earlier, I would say, sculpting style of Gearguts Mech Shop. The model's a little squatter, but I think it is really well scaled to represent Ghazghkull in a game, and he's on the appropriate base size to represent Ghazghkull, and is armed properly as well. So I have used this model to represent Ghazghkull, and I think he's a good alternative for that. But I will say that the Gearguts Mark II and up, the models grew in stature and they're broader, so they may be more suited to be used as a Mecha Dread or Mega Dread in their proportions. But here's Gearguts Mark 1. You can see a consistent theme in a lot of the Gearguts marks is some like combined skull and cybernetic parts for the head, and usually have some skull thing covering the codpiece, some melee weapon, some DACA weapon, and usually skulls sculpted to shoulder pad or one of the shoulder pads. So there's Gearguts Mark 1. And Gearguts Mark 2, which came out on top in a video I recently released where I compared the first 4 Gearguts marks and I ranked them. Overwhelmingly, Gearguts Mark 2 is my favorite of all of them. I really do like the posing and the stance and the proportions on him. He's painted in like a desert beige to represent, again, military colors for my blood axes. But this guy's got like an energy gun here. He's got a huge cannon for an arm, and has a lot of the design elements carrying over from the Gearguts Mark 1. In particular, I really like the head on this one. I like the exposed skull and that cybernetic eye that I did like a glow effect in there. And he's got some lights and cool things going on, and some pistons and power plant, checkered pattern on the shoulder pad. So this model is my favorite of the 5, but I'm still painting up number 5, and who knows when he's done. Maybe he moves his way up the leaderboards. Working our way towards the end. This is my last 40K alternative model, and what we're looking at here is the Dark Bruiser Looted Tank A, and this is obviously usable if you're going to play the Dark Bruisers that Gearguts has created as Chaos Space Marine alternatives. However, I am a World Eaters player as one of the 3 main armies that I collect for Warhammer 40k, and I saw this sculpt and I was like, pretty much right out of the box, this can just be built as a Defiler. And the only thing that I added to it was a combi bolter, just because currently in the army building, combi bolter is a free take, and there's nothing on the sculpt to represent that, and I want to field this thing WYSIWYG, so I added one element there, so you can see all these cables and things that are hanging underneath. It's tough to see because he's mounted on the base, but all these cables add some really cool detail to the bottom of it. This build, I'll say, of all the Gearguts builds, I found this one to be one of the most challenging, because when Gearguts sculpted this model digitally, he made a lot of the leg parts independent, which allows for customization. If you want this thing to be, like, say, climbing up over a wall or over a rock, you have the ability to position the legs with a lot of option, and I think that's cool. But my experience building it just took a long time trying to get the legs level. Like, I had to get a couple of them on the ground and some points of contact, and then I deliberated, was I going to put it on a base? Because I understand the real Defiler kit is not based, which in my play experience causes some problems because it doesn't have a base and it's sometimes hard to measure to it or away from it. But because of sometimes fragileness of these resin printed parts, and there's some fine connections here, I didn't want to get in a situation where it got picked up and a leg snapped off. So I just opted to glue him to a base. The turret is separate and can be positioned around. But yeah, this is painted to match my World Eaters force. And I didn't do anything to like unorcify it. It's just got some kind of jaggedy looking armor, and it's got some chains, which fits well, in my opinion, with the World Eaters aesthetic. So there you go. That's the Defiler, which comes from the Dark Bruiser Looted Tank A. Oh, bumped my camera there. The last 2 miniatures I want to show you are some newer direction for Gearguts in 2023. He started to do fantasy type models, which would be usable for Age of Sigmar, or if you're like me, square base Warhammer. And I know there was a lot of requests for him to do this, and the idea with these miniatures was to create something that, through the scaling of the print, they could be scaled to ogre sized, they could be scaled to orc size, or scaled down, they could be usable as chaos warriors. And that's just talking about Warhammer Fantasy equivalents. Obviously there's a lot of other use for armored brutes in miniature gaming, but predominantly I play 8th edition Warhammer Fantasy, and I was excited to field these guys as ogre bulls with additional hand weapons, or additional hand weapon and Iron Fist, I guess, could happen there. I'll show you a little bit more detail there. It's armored brute, and rather than paint the skin orc green, my ogre army is painted in like a pallid flesh. So I've just carried that through on them. So this model comes from the Harbingers A, the Wrecker Harbingers A. So if you're looking for any of the fantasy models on the web store, you type in Wreckers, and Wreckers is the term to describe all of the, we'll say, fantasy type guys. So he's a Wreckers Harbingers A. They come in a set of 5, let's say, monstrous cavalry, and this one is one of 3 from the. Oh, I'm sorry. He is Brawlers. He's Brawlers A. This guy is Harbingers. He is Harbingers A, which is basically the command squad. He represents the standard bearer, and there's also a musician and what would be considered a unit champion. And that model is just a guy with a huge shield in front of him. And yeah, I really like this model as a generic whatchamacallit, generic standard bearer that can be used for lots of different things. And if you think about conversion and kit bash opportunities, you could digitally or manually remove this this icon, and you can even just put another icon over top of it to represent a different faction. And you see I also have painted this in that pallid flesh color, or that light gray. So there you go. Moving on into fantasy stuff is Gearguts, and that ends the review of the models that I painted for Gearguts in 2023. Although if you review my Instagram, I do have a bunch of other models that I've painted as a commission painter that are Gearguts sculpts. If you're interested in any of the models you saw here, or you'd like to browse the Gearguts store, I will drop a link in the description, and if you use that link to make any purchases for Gearguts, you will receive a discount any time of year, but there are different parts of the year with some exceptional discounts of like 15 or 20% off physical models, or buying the 3D printed models, and some of the sales are as good as 40% off STLs. So keep an eye on my Instagram page for notices about those sales. But throughout the year, there's always a sale. So anytime you want to purchase STL files or physical prints, you'll get that discount. Okay, thanks for making it to the end of the video. As you can tell, I'm really excited about Gearguts stuff. Appreciate you watching. Take care.